Last Epoch is probably one of the greatest games of all time. It's not even out yet, and it has already eviscerated Diablo 4 and completely destroyed Path of Exile. It is the most unique, well-designed, and well-made game ever, and it's only gonna get better from here.
A lot of people have wanted me to play this game, this Last Epoch shit, and I do plan on it, 100%. Okay, here we go.
Why should you play Last Epoch? Well, let me tell you.
Let's see.
Okay.
I first got approached by the CEO of Last Epoch in 2018, and they asked me if I would be willing to do a sponsored segment of the game and check it out.
Okay.
And if this is your first time seeing my content and you're unfamiliar with how I approach sponsorships, I asked him, can I say whatever I want about the game? So I want to make sure that I can always, well, frankly, roast the game if it's bad. And to this day, Judd had the best response of any game. They said, Ziz, if there's anything wrong with our game, you can roast it, because we want to make a good game, not just make a lot of money.
Hey, and that happened, because when this game came out, initially, at the very, very, very early stages, it wasn't that great. It was bad. But, man, how the times have changed.
So, that was a great response.
I feel like people that usually aren't open for criticism about like their game or their product, they're probably not going to have a good game or good product.
Wow.
Like, it's one thing for like people to not listen to it because they think it's wrong, but like to not even want to hear it at all.
And I did, because frankly the game was very bad back then. But since then, the game has been growing exponentially, and every single time I come back, which is roughly every 3 to 6 months, the game has had so many wonderful changes. And now that we're coming up on launch, I wanted to make a video talking about all the good and the bad things of the game and why you should give it a try.
Huh.
I'm gonna be honest, like visually this game, I mean obviously PoE came out 10 years ago, so it's to be expected. But like this game looks way better than PoE did whenever it came out. Like it already seems to have like a lot more content than PoE did whenever it released, and it had a lot more content than Diablo 4 or Diablo 3. It certainly...
True. And you know what's the best part? The graphics are the weakest part. Everyone who's going to play Last Epoch is going to tell you. The graphics are the weakest part currently. Previously, it also was the beginning levels experience, how the game played, was kind of a little bit sketchy and a little bit like, who cares, right? It wasn't the greatest. The first, like, hour of Last Epoch was not the deliverer that people wanted, but they changed that. They changed the early experience, and now it's more streamlined, it's more better, it's more everything. And the story, which I still have no idea what's exactly happening, is better as much as I understand it. And the graphics are constantly getting improved. Constantly. Oh yeah, it's only a matter of time before it's Last Epoch all the way, baby.
It seems that way.
And I'll start off by saying it is pretty much the perfect middle.
Dude, I have never played a melee necromancer, by the way. This is well actually this is not a necromancer. This is a lich, probably. Yeah, he's playing a lich. You have your base class and then you have ascendancies. But this is not like PoE's ascendancies where it's like, here's a multiplier and die. Nah, this is actual classes. PoE doesn't have classes. If you have played PoE to a finite more than a beginner level, you know that PoE has literally no classes. It's just you pick a skill gem that you want to play with, and then you pick the ascendancy that has most X's associated with that skill gem. In this game, though, you have classes, baby. And all of those classes are unique as hell. It's absolutely amazing. 10 out of 10.
Ground between Diablo 4 and Path of Exile. Path of Exile is often too complicated for a lot of people, where you feel like you need a PhD in order to just make a functioning build.
Well, no, you don't need a PhD in Path of Exile to understand it or make it function. It's just, well, there's literally multiple novellas you need to read, or Wikipedia articles, because crafting is pretty much the game. And that sucks. That turns a lot of people away because it's stupid.
To play the game, and then you have Diablo 4, which is super accessible and good for couch co-op and things like that, but you do end up running out of content very fast, and maybe you feel like, I wish there was some more complexity that I could chew
Yeah.
on. Last Epoch breaches that middle ground between the two games perfect.
People have said that like the crafting system in Last Epoch is the best crafting system in an ARPG, which is crazy to think.
Yep. It's super easy, super accessible. Now, admittedly, the first time you see this, you're not gonna understand it. But this is like 1-2 minute video away from you understanding how fully crafting works and why it's amazing. Like, there's no fuss, there's no problems. It's just Google, YouTube or Google a video how to craft in Last Epoch, and all of this suddenly makes sense in 2 minutes, and that's it. That's literally it. In Path of Exile, that takes literally 5 days to read 1.5 light novels because it's stupid, and then you still probably don't understand something because something wasn't explained properly. There you go.
Where you do actually have quite a lot of stuff to do, and you feel like there is some cool stuff to figure out, but it's not as complicated as Path of Exile, and you can do builds on your own without following a build guide. So that's the quick TLDR.
I think that's really the reason why people have a problem getting into PoE, is that they don't want to have to watch a video and like follow the video for exactly how to play the game. Because I would say a lot of people think that like, okay, well, if I'm doing that, then it's like, am I even really playing the game? Like, it's like they're playing the game for me. So...
yeah, kind of fair point, kind of understandable. Oh, Ziz, can you please not exist there? Thank you. Kind of a fair point. It's understandable because PoE is a game where the majority of people are following build guides. They're not even thinking for themselves. They're just putting a point in what the guide tells you to at any point that you have the opportunity to. That's it. You know, technically in that sense, Diablo 4 is more complex than PoE because for Diablo, people don't usually look up guides, they just do their own thing. But in PoE, a lot of people, probably more than half the people who actually go to the end game of PoE are literally people who just follow guides. That is the reality of it. More than, my bet would be that more than half of the people who actually clear endgame in PoE don't even know what to do on their own, they just follow guides and builds of other people.
Well, I don't know how PoE can ever make that better with PoE 2. I'm not really sure. But that's the way I think a lot of people feel.
So, it is very much the middle ground between Path of Exile being a free game and Diablo 4 being a $70 game, where Last Epoch is $35 with no in-game purchases other than cosmetics. That means that anything like stash tabs, like in Path of Exile, are things that you buy in-game for gold. It's not something...
oh, wow. So there's not even like any pay-for-convenience stuff in this game. I didn't know that. That's nuts. Well, like, how do they load everybody else?
That's not nuts. That's expected. The best games don't have to force the nickel and dime their player base. They don't have to sell this because, oh my god, how are they going to make money? Lost Ark is a great example of it. Lost Ark is one of the most nichest things ever because it's one of the most complicated games in all of existence. Like, when your typical boss has 20 to 40 moves that some require 0.5 second reaction times to not fuck up and things like that, otherwise you wipe. Yeah, that's a special kind of game. And the people who are left playing it, well, that is pay to win. But a lot of people don't actually pay to win because they find it useless. They just buy skins because they want to support the game. This is what happens with good games. People just buy the skins. People just support the game naturally because it's good enough.
Else's stash tabs, though. Yeah, how do they do that?
You can spend money on. So $35 is all you're spending on the game. So now let's take a look at some features in the game and explain what makes Last Epoch so cool. So like games you've already encountered, there are
wait a minute.
base classes,
Yeah.
and they're a little bit more rigid than Path of Exile, and a little bit more similar of Diablo 4. They do have some...
Okay, shut up, Ziz. This is how you explain a Last Epoch, how good the game is, okay? The first character I made was an Acolyte, aka the Necromancer class. Then I ascended into a Necromancer, and I had a great time. And after that, you know what was my second class that I made? Another necromancer. Because there's just that many ways that you can build a character. One single skill of any class has more customizability than the whole of PoE put together. That's how amazing Last Epoch is. And, you know, stuff like that. And the third class I made was a mage. And then the first class I made was a lich. Which is also a necromancer, technically. Again, it's that good. It is that good. And the fifth class I made was another lich. And then the sixth class I made after I got tired of that and, you know, stopped playing for a couple of months was another necromancer. And all of these times, I did separate, unique, different things. Yeah. Every single time. It's crazy how much replayability even a single class has. And they all feel unique.
Classes. So the Sentinel is the base class and that has Void Knight, Forge Guard, Paladin, etc. And we can go in-game to one of my characters, Zizabir the Druid. And what is really, really cool about Last Epoch is that each skill has its own skill tree.
Yep.
And this is actually very...
And you can pretty much make a skill just from the skill tree alone, work in at least 3 to 4 different ways typically. And those ways that it works are going to be feelably different. They're going to be noticeably different how they work. And then there are items that actually even further can customize these abilities sometimes. So there you go.
Very, very digestible. So while in Path of Exile you are just like overwhelmed by a massive skill tree, here
I think with PoE there's too many variables. And so like a normal person, like without having like a huge amount of like background knowledge for the game, they're not able to accurately parse out what's valuable and what's not.
Yeah, makes sense.
Things a little bit more condensed. So you have character skill trees. So this is the Primalist. So as a new player, these are all the nodes you need to look at, right? For your first 30.
It feels so good to level up in this game. You look forward to it. Not like in Diablo when you're just like, oh, I leveled up. Oh, turns out I have leveled up for 5 levels now. I just didn't notice. Oh, well, it is what it is. No, every skill point is just, give it to me, baby. There's... every skill point also unlocks things. You see these lines here? Yeah, you need to put that many. It's such a great progression system. It's beautiful.
That's levels or something. Pretty easy to go through and see what all of these do.
Yeah.
A big relief is that respecking is very accessible in this game. And
also
a large problem with Path of Exile is that respecs are very inaccessible to new players.
Yeah, I think that's a huge problem with PoE. Like, in my opinion, I think that's one of the unironic, like, and unnecessary PoE L's that they have. Is it like...
I don't agree with that. I think PoE is... The only people who want to respect that actively in PoE are hardcore, you know, most hardcore players who get a level 100 and then they want to respect it. Now, that's probably like less than 1% of the player base that do that. Other people just get their character to Kitava and kill Kitava and then just quit because essentially the game's done almost, you know? And I'm not talking about the actual second Kitava kill. I'm talking about the first Kitava kill. That's it. People quit there.
Like, I think you should be able to respec, like, at any time you want, whatever you want, whenever you're still in the campaign. Or, right, before you even get, like, out of, like, white maps or maybe something like that, right? Like, it's just, like, why lock a level 55 player into a bad build? Like, they're just gonna quit the game.
Something I think Diablo 4 did very right, and Last Epoch does as well. And then later on, somewhere between like level 20 and 30, you will unlock a master class or ascendancy or subclass. And
it's way faster now. Previously, it took a while until you unlocked your real class, but now it's really fast. It's like 1.5, 2-ish hours into the game, I think, if not faster.
And you can see that that also does not have an insane amount of things.
Yeah.
So it's pretty easy to get a good grasp on what you want to do.
This kind of reminds me a little bit of the Warcraft talent trees, like the like Dragonflight talent trees. And I don't know about you guys, but like I liked my talent tree as a warrior.
And then
so this
you
is
look over
good.
one skill at a time, and that has its own skill tree that will
Holy
change
fuck.
the way the
Holy
build
fuck.
works. For example, do I want to focus on having a lot of additional wolves instead of just one? Then you can make it so they have 4, 5, etc. wolves. And you can go a full summoner with summon Sabertooth and summon Bear.
See, I think I might go Summoner in Last Epoch. I'm either going to go that, or I'm going to go whatever the Whirlwind Bladestorm is. I haven't decided which one it's going to be yet.
And then you go for wolves, and you can have like a total companion limit.
Is that
and run
multiplayer?
around
Yeah,
with
it
a
does.
bit of a zoo build. So
I've seen
you have
it.
so many choices. And same with like Maelstrom, you can make this be something very similar to Path of Exile's Blade Vortex build. And
Void
it's very,
Knight,
very
yeah.
cool. And it's been really easy to just
sounds
make
good.
my own build and play around with it, even on hardcore. So you're a little less pigeonholed, and a part of that is the game is a little bit easier than Path of Exile.
Yeah.
That's not to say that it doesn't
Well,
have
PoE was also a lot easier whenever it came out. Like, you've got to keep in mind that, like, Shaper at the time was a huge difficulty spike. And, like, Shaper is...
Bro, I still remember the good old times when Piety was the last boss. Okay? Man, what's the... Maligado? No, what's his name? What's his fucking stupid name? The guy at the tower after Piety. I don't even remember his name. I don't even think I know his name. Anyway, yeah, that guy being added to the game was already like, oh, mind blown. Yeah, but, you know, Piety was the big boss for such a long time. It was crazy. And she had, what, 0 attacks, roughly?
isn't really that hard compared to, like, Searing Exarch. Searing Exarch is really hard. Or, like, Maven can be hard, too. Cirrus. So, yeah, I mean... Back in the day, like, PoE wasn't that hard either. It's just like that takes time to build up to that.
challenging endgame content, because there are things that are really hard, especially on hardcore, that I haven't yet done at the hardest level.
Yeah, which makes
sense. We can
sense.
talk more about that later. Another thing I would like to showcase is Last Epoch's Invoker. If you're a Dota player, you're very familiar with Invoker, and the concept is basically, this is a character that has a large amount of skills in one skill. So it's very, very cool that you have like different runes or different other spells you can cast, and they will trigger a rune, and based on that, you can fire a different spell. Now, normally the way this would work is that if I'm casting 3 fireballs, I'd be getting 3 fire runes, and then my R would cast that as a different spell. However, I've actually done a skill point that locks them in to be the same 3 combos. So because I have my Frost Claw followed by Fireball followed by Frost Wall, it is going to do Cold, Fire, Cold, and then this Runic Invocation will actually give me a huge buff. So you have so much stuff that you can do there, and then I can actually just spam my
That's so
Fireball,
satisfying, by
and
the
I'm
way, just
basically
the
doing an
mow
ignite
things down.
proliferation thing. So you can see that anytime I'm hitting something,
Yeah,
it'll
it kills everything
proliferate
around
the
it.
fire. So you have a lot of flexibility. And obviously with a skill such as this, there will be some...
Oh, this is the campaign, by the way. The campaign is never RNG. Also, it's literally always the exact same set of tiles, and it's very straightforward.
things that are more powerful than others. And while it does have...
Another thing I like about this game is it shows numbers. Like, I know PoE players are happy with not showing numbers. I am a big number enjoyer. I like seeing the numbers.
I think it's 30 or 39 skills.
Dude, when you play Summoner and you have 30, 40 minions attacking something, yeah, the numbers are... That's really good.
Something. There are, like, at least, like, 10 different ways to build that skill that are really viable.
Yeah.
And obviously, all that needs to change for different skills to be viable are different balancing changes. So there are a lot of really cool skills there, especially visually appealing skills. Next up, I want to talk and explain a little bit about Last Epoch's item system. And something they do extremely well is that both drops and crafting is very exciting. It's very easy for a game to be very one-sided there, where it's all about the drops and no crafting at all, like Diablo 4, or it's all about the crafting, and the drops don't really matter
PoE.
like Path of
Yeah.
Exile. I feel like Last Epoch does a really good job at hitting a beautiful middle ground where you kind of need both for every item. So you drop the base type, which obviously...
Yeah,
like,
I feel like making sure that you can get really big drops is like super important for like any ARPG, I would say.
Oh, really?
Because like it keeps that excitement going all the time.
Oh, who would
I
have
think that like one
expected?
bad thing for ARPGs is whenever you have like times where it's like you almost know that like you're not going to get anything good at all.
ARPGs,
It's like that's
there
like
are
that's whenever
different
the
base
game is
types.
boring, you know?
There will be like easy or normal versions of an item that you drop when you're low level, and there will be endgame versions of an item that you drop when you're high level.
Okay.
And like most ARPGs, Last Epoch has prefixes and suffixes. So you can
Sure.
see if I hold Alt on the item here, it has up to 2 prefixes and 2 suffixes.
Yeah.
And these go from tier 1, so tier 1 lightning damage would be very low, all the way up to tier 5.
So it's the opposite
That's
of
the highest
PoE.
you can craft, and we'll
Yeah.
show and talk about the crafting system here in a second, because it is very interesting. But there is a tier 6 and a tier 7 thing that is drop only. So basically what you're looking for then is
So you can still get like really insanely fucking good drops.
be running around looking
Okay. Let me explain it in a more simplistic way. Okay, here. There are 2 ways that games work. You could be technically more like Diablo 4, where killing things is the satisfactory part, but drops are not actually that interesting most of the time. Or there are situations where the game is like PoE. Arguably, where killing things doesn't even feel good at some point in the game because it's just stupid and it's a zoomer festivity because you can clear maps in 30 seconds because zoom, gotta go fast, boy. It is what it is. And then only a big drop actually is interesting because there are so select few things. Here, killing stuff feels good. And in Last Epoch, there's a lot of different things that are pretty good things because they're just drops. They can be used. There is not one item that you are technically hunting like in PoE or D4. There are a bunch of smaller items that you're like, oh yes, this is a really good this is going to be used for this part and so on. It's pretty good in that case. There's a lot of things that can drop and can be really exciting.
looking for these exalted items and find a tier 6 or a tier 7 item that has one stat you want, and then recraft the others. And maybe it has several of the stats that you want. So we will use this axe as an example. So let's say that we want a character that wants a lot of void damage, and maybe we're doing a like melee void strike on a different character.
Okay.
Now you can see here that I have different options. The void damage is already tier 6, and I cannot naturally upgrade above tier 5. But I can see that the melee attack speed is a tier 1, so I can actually force to upgrade this. Each item has a different forging potential. That's how much crafting you can continue doing, and it tells me now it'll cost between 1 to 10 forging potential. I could also get very lucky and do a critical hit, which will cost 0
right there,
forging
yeah.
potential, and randomly upgrade one of the other mods that aren't tier 5 yet. And that system feels incredibly rewarding just here. The fact that I
Okay.
can choose exactly what to do, and if one of these were empty, I could actually choose whatever I want. So if it didn't already have frailty on melee hit, which is something that makes enemies a bit weak.
Also, you know what this does? It's exactly the opposite of Path of Exile. Here, you can legitimately brick your item, and it's like, well, need to find a new one. Boop, boop, boop. In Path of Exile, it's like, okay, let me just spam 5,000 alteration orbs on this thing so I can get the base that I want. Or, you know, spam something else to get the base that I want. It's just like, okay, how many resources am I willing to throw into this before it becomes perfect?
Weaker, like it'll tell you on it by holding. So frailty reduces damage dealt by 6, and that could be a really good thing to have on hardcore. And I could just freely add this. You just choose to have this on the item, and it comes at the cost of some forging potential. But now, let's say that I want to upgrade the melee attack speed. I can use a glyph. We have a glyph of hope, which now is
Chance to have no fortune. Okay.
a 25% chance to have 0 forging potential lost. This is really, really good for
Big.
in-game crafts, and not something you'll use during the campaign.
Uh-huh.
But what if I don't want this to be melee attack speed at all. What if I'm really hoping for something else? I can now basically use this as a sort of mini Chaos Orb from Path of Exile, and I will reroll this stat.
So you're rerolling specific stats then?
Yes.
Wow, I got critical strike
And
chance.
all of this is completely fine because of the fortune potential. Because you can just literally brick the item.
That was exactly what I needed for my character.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
that is a really, really cool thing. You can see that it now has 33. And you also have a glyph of order, and that is, for example, if the crit is really, really good, like it is right now, it is 80% crit. It's at the highest range within the tier. If I use a glyph of order when I upgrade it, you can see now I upgrade it, and it's still 96%. Like,
So it keeps even the range whenever you upgrade the tier. I feel like that's kind of good because it can make people feel good about getting good rolls earlier on.
Yeah, and it's a super simple crafting material, technically.
if I didn't do that, it had a chance to now go down to 83%. It would still be higher than the 80 it was, but it would be at the bottom of the
Because, like, for example, like with Diablo, whenever you upgrade into the next, like, tier of, like, affixes, like it, what was it, like, 720?
700 maybe. I know what he's talking about. Again, Diablo 4, get rid of world tiers. It's literally ruining the game on every way possible. Hey, you don't want to do some mechanics until you're in world tier 4. You know, the items just make no sense because they can get into the next world tier and that makes them way more overpowered. Bruh, Diablo, fix your shit. I'm so happy of Dami Mommy who took over Blizzard and now is looking at Diablo and saying, ah, yes, you know what? I agree. The developers all deserve to hang from trees by nooses.
25, like, I don't remember what the number was. That, like, then, like, the numbers, it would re-roll all of the affixes. And, like, the ranges.
This is just a random leveling item for a lot of builds, but it has something called legendary potential. And this is a great segue to talk about one of my favorite features in Last Epoch, legendary potential.
Okay.
The way legendary potential works, which is particularly cool for leveling uniques, is it will allow you to smash a rare item into a unique item. Every unique item in Last Epoch can spawn with between 0 to 4 legendary potential. The more common the item is...
Which makes it even more ridiculous. Yeah, you see how simple this is. Like, he literally explained to you pretty much the whole crafting system in less than 4 minutes. And you can understand how much potential this has. And again, 4 minutes.
The higher the chance it is that I'll have legendary potential. So what is legendary potential and how does it work? You can actually smash this together with a tier 6 or tier 7 exalted item and it will take some of the stats. If it has 4 legendary potential, it'll absorb the entire item. If it has 2, it'll absorb 2 at random. And here you can see a leveling item.
Yeah, essentially, there are so many chase items technically because of that. The amount of improvement you can do on your character does not stop.
Firestarter's Torch, and this had 3 legendary potential. I smashed this together with a another scepter that had 157 fire damage, and I got really lucky and it kept that fire damage, making an insane leveling item. And I'm actually kind of proud that that was my suggestion to the game to the developers, and a lot of players don't like doing the campaign repeatedly in ARPGs. I talked to them and I was like, it would be really cool if we could make super cool twink items to level through the campaign really fast. And they thought that was...
I feel like that's something that I liked about Diablo 3. And that's one of the reasons why I like trading in games like this, is that even if you, like, you get a good piece of gear, you can still use it for leveling another character. Like, I always liked that about Diablo 3. Like, I would get some really good wand or, like, a really good bow, and then I'm like, oh, okay, well, maybe I'll make a wizard.
Really good idea, and put it in the game, and remove the level requirement.
Yeah, like Classic WoW has that too.
Legendary potential items.
Yeah.
So that, yeah, your first playthrough of the campaign every season is going to be
Classic
really similar,
WoW doesn't have...
but on your second and third, you might have really cool items that you're looking forward to using, and I think that's a great way
It's like kind of like a tabula rasa in PoE.
That. Another really good selling point of the game, I did previously mention that respecking is very easy, and it is. So the more you level, there will be a minimum specialized level. So if I completely unspec out of this, it will go all the way to, like, I believe, right now level 5, and later on that will get higher. So you will have like a minimum required level that it will start at when you get a new skill. Or
essentially how this works out in real life is, if you want to change your spec, you just click this, and yeah, you're weaker, but you're weaker only for like 30 minutes. But, you know, still, that weakness is not even that profound. It's just, you kind of feel that you're weaker, but that's pretty much it. It's a minimal thing. It's all, you can think of, you can kind of look at this like it's almost free.
Or when you respec entirely, and you have accelerated XP gain until you're caught up with your other skills. And if you don't want to start over completely, you can just remove 1 point entirely for free. And for your skill
I feel like this game has so many like common sense solutions to a lot of problems people have had with ARPGs for like 10 years.
That's the thing when something is innovated in such an absolutely amazing way. You look at it and you think, yeah, this is common sense. The reality is, if it's not actually common sense, because if this was common sense, then games would have done this before, but they didn't, because this is actually what you legitimately call innovation. It's crazy, boys.
Like, that's what I really kind of like about this. That feels refreshing.
You can just click on a point and remove it.
Yep.
So we can go here to Rune Master, and I can just like remove it for 140 gold. So it's actually very, very cheap and accessible to respec.
Has he not respec before? I thought... Now, because I don't respec, so I actually don't know this part of the game, but I thought the more you respec, the more expensive the gold sink becomes, or something like that. I thought that's how it works. Huh, interesting.
Respec, which is a really good thing. The only downside is that currently you cannot switch. If I've chosen Rune Master, I cannot unspec out of that and choose a Sorcerer. So you really have to be careful when choosing your Ascendancy. This is, in my opinion, a really big negative of the game, and something that they should change and make it easier to switch between them so that you...
I understand that people want this, and I think they said that they're going to actually add something that allows you to respec your mastery. But the thing is... This is not always necessarily good for games, by the way. The reason why you don't want someone to just freely respec everything is because then they're not going to make other characters, and they play the game less, technically. Also, you know, there is a certain amount of excitement, thrill, and enjoyment that you forsake when you're a max level character and you respec into something completely different. When you don't start off from zero, there is a certain excitement in the journey, as they say.
Especially as a new player, have a little bit more room to experiment. Maybe you didn't like the Rune Master after all, and you really want to try a Sorcerer. But
yeah, I think that's generally always a good idea too. Like, I almost always think that locking players into a decision isn't a good idea. Because, like, what it ends up, like, what I think locking players into a decision actually does is it makes people look everything up online, and then, so they don't make the wrong decision. And it's like, it kind of makes sense, right? Where, like, okay, if you punish people for making bad decisions...
Literally PoE, technically.
People will try harder to not get punished. So if you put people in a position where it's like, if you make the wrong call, your character is bricked, well, then guess what's going to happen? Well, they're not going to want to make the wrong call, so they're going to look it up ahead of time, and they're not really going to, I guess you could say, play the game.
Lucky, maybe
or they'll just quit. Yeah, or they can just quit. True.
In the future. Items in a lot of games can be big and problematic. It can clutter the screen a lot, and maybe in games like Diablo 4, you'll see a large amount of white and blue items that you're no longer
Nobody gives a fuck about. Yeah.
You don't have any option at all to do anything about it. In Path of Exile, a loot filter is entirely mandatory, and if you're playing without it, your entire screen is covered. And even with a weak loot filter, you can simply not see anything at all, and you end up spending hours making a loot filter on a third-party platform. Last Epoch has the most elegant...
Has he put points into Simulacrum? That's his W. Simulacrum. That's a movement skill. Has he put points into that? From that gameplay, it almost feels like he has.
Solution
Strange.
I've seen so far to a loot filter, and everything is in game, and you make it as you play the game.
What the
now
fuck?
you can just import it.
Yeah, essentially the loot filter is the most simple thing technically in the world. Even if you mess it up, chances are you figure out instantaneously what was your mistake, unless you literally have brain damage. The loot filter is so easy to use and whatnot. Again, last Epoch literally takes everything and makes it better, and it is beautiful. And that's pretty much it, honestly. The Atlas, oh yeah, this is the Atlas. It's way better than you think. This is not complicated. This is essentially mapping from PoE. You can see the ticked ones are the ones that you have done. And wait, could you actually go and do them again? I don't even remember. But there's essentially a guaranteed reward in these ones. For example, here it's gold, it looks like. I don't remember what this is. But, you know, there are certain... every place has a certain guaranteed. And it does not go out to infinity. It resets at some point. There is the maximum that you can go, and then you have to reset it because of corruption, instability, blah, blah, blah. All of that stuff. It's a very good system. It's not complicated at all. You just pick a place, you go there, you can see the map modifiers of it. There is a guaranteed reward. Then you move more outwards, and then you kind of finish it. It's great. It's absolutely amazing. Well, anyway, I think that's honestly pretty much it. And the Trade League stuff here is also, who cares? Anyway, this was Quizzer Said. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. And have a nice day. Bye bye.